Hey! Before getting into this video, I just wanted to point out that less than 2% of the people who watch my content are subscribed. If you're enjoying my content, make sure you hit that subscribe button to stay updated. I'll be doing a lot more Splatoon 3 content in the future. Man, what a direct we had yesterday, or I guess when this video comes out it'd be a day or two after. But I mean, personally for me, it was a bit lackluster. Up until the end, where they announced Skyward Sword HD and Splatoon 3. And I am so hyped for this game. We got a 3-minute trailer for Splatoon 3. Interesting how that's the length of the video. But anyways, yeah, we got a short little trailer about the game, and there was a ton of new content thrown at us. So let's go over some of the things they showed us, and some of the things that you may have missed. To start things off, the first scene they show us, well, it doesn't show us much, so let's just go right to the next scene. Now, this scene shows a little bit more, but again, not much. We see a bunch of old rust and trains and cars and other rusty items. Now, at first thought, I thought these may have been the same or even similar trains to the Deep Sea Metro trains in Splatoon 2 Octo expansion, but they're actually different. So aside from that, this scene doesn't tell us much other than it's a wasteland with a bunch of junk lying around. But the next scene gets real juicy. So, we finally get a look at the main character of the game. I don't know if this is Agent 3 or Agent 4. It doesn't look like Agent 4, but maybe Agent 3? I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's a whole new person. Is it Agent 5? I don't know. But let's call them that for the sake of this video. So a few quick things to know about Agent 5. The first being that they're wearing a mask. Why? Well, because everybody wears masks nowadays. There's a fucking pandemic going on, you idiot. No, but seriously, the real reason is to help keep the sand from getting in their mouth. But I'm not 100% sure on that. They're also wearing a hood, and I just want to point out that I love when video game characters wear a hood. I think it instantly makes them look way cooler. But why are they wearing a hood? Well, maybe they're not trying to be seen or noticed by anyone. Maybe they're on the run, or they're some sort of fugitive or resistance member. More on that in a little bit. They also have some sort of new shoes. I mean, these are more like boots than anything, and I assume these are just better for walking in the sandy area. I'm going to skip ahead for a little bit, just to finish talking about what Agent 5 is wearing. So, they have a new hairstyle, we'll get to that in a moment too. And they're wearing a white shirt, which looks like it has some rips in it. Seeing as how this may be an inkling on the run, they may not have many clothes to wear, so this shirt just seems to be a little beat up as a result. As for their pants, it seems like just normal shorts. They also seem to be wearing glasses or goggles to again help keep the sand from getting in their eyes. And lastly, we notice a little salmonoid buddy near us. More on him later too. As this scene plays out, we start to see some customization options. The first being a body style for a female or male Inkling. And what some people may have not noticed at first is also an option to pick from a female or male Octoling. This confirms that Inklings and Octolings are now at peace and are no longer enemies. They were in Splatoon 1, and they were a little bit in Splatoon 2 as well until we got the Octo expansion DLC, which helped us unite the two species. The next menu is a skin tone menu, and then an eye color menu. And man, do we get a lot of options. Some with 3 colors in one. It looks like the bottom right corner is the outermost ring on the cornea, and as it gets closer to the pupil, it blends into the middle color. Now, on the back right side, I think it's the pupil color, but in the video they never hovered over it, so we don't really know what that color is for. After selecting your eye color, you then get to pick your hair, and this is where things get a little juicy. The default hairstyle is one side being normal and the other side is braided. The next one we see is an almost cornrow looking style. This third one happens a bit quick, but it has a little short curls on the ends of the tips. And the fourth one is by far the ugliest in my opinion. It looks like a bowl cut. And the last two seem to be the default hairstyles from Splatoon 1. There is a few more, but unfortunately we don't get to see those. At least not yet. After selecting your hair, it looks like we get to pick out leg wear. And oh my gosh, we finally have more than 3 dinky little options to choose from. We have normal shorts and pants, baggier shorts I think, some sporty shorts, maybe some leggings, and oh look, a skirt, finally! After that, it seems like a longer pair of shorts, maybe some pants with zippers, and lastly some shorts with a blue line going down the inner side of the leg. I wonder what that could be. We then get to customize our little salmonoid buddy, which from the looks of it, looks like he'll be our companion throughout this adventure. He's got a bunch of cool little haircuts you can choose from, but they only show us about 3 of them. Nothing much else to this. And now we finally get to see our little buddy and Agent 5 together. Oh, oops. I forgot to mention Agent 5's new weapon. It's a bow and arrow type of thing. I really like the idea of this. Not only does it give more of a wasteland vibe, but it's just so much different than any other weapon we've had in the game so far. And I'm really excited to see how this gun is used. So right after Agent 5 and the little buddy start to walk away, we can see a big metal structure in the background. Does this look familiar to anyone? Because at first I just thought that this was a random object, but if you look a little closer, is that the Eiffel Tower upside down? I wonder why that's there. Maybe it's also the Inkopolis Tower from Splatoon 1? Maybe? I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's just the Eiffel Tower, honestly. A few other interesting things are shown in this scene. The first being how little buddy follows you around. Like, my man is zooming, and it's super cute. But I assume this is how he will follow you throughout your adventure. The next thing I want to note is the camera angle. It's fixed. Now, I think that this is just for the trailer purposes, but if this is a normal rotating camera, which I assume it is, then we might just have a little bit more of a 3D platformer on our hands, at least regarding the story mode. This is all just speculation, but if the story mode is no longer level-based, similar to Splatoon 2, then we may have something more like a Zelda game where you travel from one location to another, mixed in with Splatoon's shooting. Pretty much what I'm thinking is a third-person platformer shooter. Either that, or just this starting area of the game is Agent 5 traveling to the bus stop to get to the new city. We then get another really cool shot of Agent 5 and the new bow weapon with your little buddy. Not much else is really happening here, and then there's another quick little scene of the two of you just hanging out, maybe interacting with each other. You can see Agent 5 shaking off some of the sand on their legs. And then we get to the next scene. We now see Agent 5 and little buddy waiting for the train. Now this train looks a lot more like the Deep Sea Metro from Splatoon 2's Octo expansion. This totally could be a different train. However, if they are connected in any way, then that would be super interesting and we would be getting to see Sea Cucumber back in action. The cute little conductor guy from the Octo expansion. Now, as they are waiting for the train, I only noticed 3 little things. We can see Sheldon's logo on the front of the train. Not sure if he'd be connected to it in any way, but it's a possibility. There's a mailbox on the railing. This could just be decoration, or it could be used to call the train. And lastly, we see a little squid graffiti on the train stop, which is just, you know, Splatoon's signature graffiti aesthetic. The next scene doesn't really show off a lot, but it does have a few things to note. First off, we notice the little jelly guy sitting next to us. We don't really know much about these guys. They were in Splatoon 1 and 2. I believe you can't talk to them or do anything with them. They just kind of chill and hang out. And then we got a fish guy to our left. He seems to be someone new, but I assume he's just another resident of the new city. There is some graffiti here and there on the train, but nothing that really stands out. And then as the scene plays, we start to slowly see what I assume to be the new city in the background. And then this trailer just goes hyper mode and shows us so much stuff at once, so I'm going to try and do my best to point everything out. So now we finally get a look at our new city, and this place kind of looks shitty. It's not designed poorly, but what I mean is that this city looks like the ghetto. It looks like a really poor area of a city. There's massive apartment buildings with what looks like little apartments, ACs in almost every window, and some laundry hanging around. We can then see some business signs and billboards hanging around. I didn't recognize any of these, but I assume they're just for decoration. I noticed a street light and a street sign, which is interesting, as I don't think we've seen these in a Splatoon game before. I mean, we can see a garbage truck on the right-hand side, so maybe there'll be some sort of moving traffic in the city. And lastly, we can see a few inklings out in the distance. Now, it's hard to tell if these are some sort of new hairstyles or old ones. I'm going to assume it's a mixture of both, but it's really hard to see. Most of the clothing we see looks like some returning items from the previous games. In a very fast shot, we see an airplane flying over the city, and it's pretty low to the ground too. That means there has to be some sort of airport nearby. It then flashes back to Agent 5 in the city, and this time we can see the backside of them, which we haven't been able to do so yet. If you look more closely to their shirt, you can see a pretty big rip in the backside, showing that this shirt is really beat up. It's strange because Inklings are known for having a good fashion sense, and ripped beat up shirts like this isn't very fashionable. You can also see the other Inklings in the plaza with way nicer clothes. So there's definitely going to be an interesting story behind Agent 5. But that's about the only new things that we see in this shot, so let's move on to the next one. We finally start to see some more of the buildings and business signs, but we also get to see a big pig-like structure. Maybe this is some sort of new shop, or maybe some sort of bank. We never really had to use a bank in the previous games, but what if when you die in this game you lose your money too? I'm not sure. I guess we'll just have to find out. It's probably just some sort of decoration, honestly. We then go back to the similar scene as last time, but the camera pans more to the left, so we can see a bit more now. We see a few neon street signs, one being an octopus, another being a salmon, maybe for some new shops or even new jobs. Maybe the salmon one is where Salmon Run will be located. Next to the Inkling wearing an orange shirt, you can see a gate and a red mailbox. The red mailbox may be the returning community posts from Splatoon 1 and 2. The next scene doesn't show much again, it's just some stairs leading up to a platform. Not exactly sure what it could lead to though. We then go back to the city scene again, with more to look at on the left side. We can see some more street lights and lamps, we can see a few other Inklings, and on the top left we can see some more of the blue blobby guys hanging out. And the last thing I noticed was, up above we can see a train rail, so obviously the train drives above the city. It then very quickly cuts to what appears to be the battle tower, or building that's going to host all of the multiplayer content. I say this because it has the same logo on it as the battle tower from Splatoon 2. Other than that, I don't think there's much else of interest in this shot, just a couple buildings in the backgrounds with cranes on them. It then cuts back to the city scene yet again. Not much to talk about here because we pretty much already went over everything. But then it cuts to a new scene where we can start to see a lot more. We can see a few more of our jelly guys. There's one on the right side that I'm not sure if I've seen before. Then some more street signs and lights, some buildings, the train rail again, and a few other small things like a moped and some moving boxes. We then have a building on the right hand side with a big snake-like structure with a crown on the roof. Now, I think this will be a new shop or maybe even a new game mode. It's too much of a complex design compared to the other buildings, so it must be some sort of new shop. And directly in the middle seems to be a better shot of our battle tower, where we will be able to find our multiplayer matches. One last thing to note is in this scene is where we see some Octolings in the background. We can see the default female hairstyle on one and the default male on the other. Other than that, it's a bit hard to see the other Octolings or Inklings, so it's hard to tell if they have new hair or clothing items. Then we cut back to the city scene again, but this time we can now confirm that the building on our left is the snake building from the previous scene. I have a feeling it might be Sheldon's new shop, or maybe someone new. I only say that because it's got Sheldon's logo on the window, and you can almost see some guns on the wall of the shop. But this scene also now confirms that we were standing in the middle of this street, looking down one alleyway with the apartment buildings on our right, the possible gun shop on our left, and behind that, out of this shot, is the battle tower. We are then hit with the logo of the game, and then jumping right into some multiplayer action. The biggest and first thing to note now is that we are now spawning from a flying cube thing, and the intro of how they do it is pretty cool too. We start to finally see some new hairstyles and clothing up close. As for the weapons, I'm not entirely sure if they're all old weapons. I think they're newer weapons, but they definitely look similar to Splatoon 2's weapons, aside from the bow we saw earlier. It then cuts to the enemy team, where we can again see some new hairstyles and some new clothing options, like the Viking helmet on the left. Now, these guns definitely look like Splatoon 2 guns, but just a little bit different, almost tweaked a little bit in design. Then it cuts to the next scene, where we can see something new and interesting. We can now aim to where we want to spawn, and you can see where your teammates are landing too, because there are two little yellow squid arrows on the left and right hand side, and a third one way off to the right that's a bit harder to see, but it's definitely a new interesting way to start the match. We can also see the spawn pad, which means that you can still jump back to spawn mid-match, and then we get a few scenes of the squids launching out of the cubes. But now it's game time. We start off with an inkling shooting the bow weapon that we have been seeing throughout the trailer, and it looks like it shoots 3 vertical ink shots at once. We then see another angle of this, but it's kind of hard to see how much ink it shoots on the ground, and that is because the camera is focused on what the other inkling is doing, which it seems like some sort of jump and spin move as a squid. It almost reminds me of the Kraken special in Splatoon 1. We then see it again, but this time they're swimming up a wall, and then they kill the enemy player. In the background of these last 2 shots, you can see some other inklings that are just moving around and shooting some ink. The camera in the scene then starts to rotate a bit more, showing us more of this map and the other inklings shooting ink. We also see some 2 sets of purple ink lines. I'm not really sure if this is a new super or maybe a new sub weapon, but it reminds me of a smaller stingray from Splatoon 2. The camera pans so fast, it's hard to see the source of this. Aside from all of that, there's not much else to point out. In the next scene, we see what looks to be like a new special weapon, and whoever is using it, it looks like they just finished using it because we see them switch back to their normal weapon. We then get the next scene where we see the map at the start of the match with no ink, and then the teams start to come out and ink it up. It then starts cutting back and forth from this scene and other scenes of inklings with new hairstyles, clothing, and even some new weapons. Side note, I'm personally a huge fan of the pixel glasses. Then, after showing off a few inklings, they then show us something new and interesting. This ball crab looking thing. This could just be a new sub-weapon similar to the Autobomb from Splatoon 2, but this time it's a crab that just walks left and right shooting ink. And finally, the last scene is an inkling shooting what I assume to be the new special weapon we saw earlier. It then fades to black, with words appearing saying back into the ink. But we are not actually done yet, because after the trailer dropped yesterday, Nintendo of America dropped some tweets giving us some new information and confirming a few things for us. So let's jump right into that too. The first tweet, they are just pretty much saying that, hey, Splatoon 3, it's a thing now. The second tweet talks a bit more about the new hairstyles and how Agent 5 has a braid. And the third tweet, they say an inkling is seen accompanied by a juvenile salmonoid called small fry. Our studies have long shown the salmonoids to be a dangerous species. How this seemingly symbolic relationship evolved is a thrilling mystery, confirming that this salmonoid is a bit different and he's on the run, so we gotta help him out. In the fourth tweet, we can finally get a name for the city, and it's called Splatsville, the newly discovered City of Chaos. City of Chaos. Wait. The Chaos vs. Order Splatfest. Chaos won, which could have impacted this city, and is the reason why it looks so shitty. It then says, Splatville's development has accelerated rapidly since the final Splatfest a year and a half ago, even though it's located far from Inkopolis. So either this game takes place a year and a half after Splatoon 2, or that's just actually how long the final fest was in real life, which it was. In these screenshots, we don't really see anything we haven't seen from the trailer already, so let's keep moving. In the next tweet, they say, "We've learned that Splatville is located in a broader region called the Splatlands." It then has 2 more screenshots showing off new clothing items like sandals and boots. Moving on to the next tweet, they say, "Even in the Splatlands, Inklings seem devoted to the popular pastime of turf war. The basic rules appear unchanged. 2 teams of 4 compete to ink the most ground. However, they appear to have taken their battles into the surrounding wilds of nature." So no longer are battles being taken place in cities and towns. It's now in the wild. In these screenshots, we see yet another look of the new special weapon at the end of the trailer. In the next tweet, they just confirmed that you can now launch yourself into the battlefield, and you can pick where you want to choose to land. They then confirmed that you can now squid roll in battle, which allows them to leap and twirl out of their ink, and a squid surge allows them to quickly swim up ink-covered walls and jump out at the top. This seems to me like it would be a really great new movement option, and I'm super excited to see how it plays out. Next up, they kind of just talk about the bow again, but nothing new. So let's just move on. They then talk about the Stingray looking special and the crowd that we saw earlier in the trailer, confirming that they are both new weapons, or sub-weapons. And then in the last tweet, as I said earlier, they also confirmed that old weapons are returning with new enhanced designs and features. Okay, now we have one last thing to go over, and then we are done. At the end of 2019, the Splatoon Twitter account tweeted this image. It says, "Have a great 2020. Well, first off, 2020 was a shit show, but that's not why we are here or looking at this image. We are looking at this image because it hints to events taking place in Splatoon 3. In this reflection of the water, you can see 2 things, SOS and another hidden message. SOS is usually a call for help that stands for Save Our Souls. And in the water, you can see the waves spelling out Save Our Salmons. Huh. Strange. We also see a lifeboat on the right side of this image. Usually we see that lifeboat when Inklings get splatted in Salmon Run game mode, and other players have to shoot the lifeboat to revive a teammate. So maybe an Inkling had wrote this hidden message. Who knows? But what we do know is that we have a little salmon buddy in Splatoon 3. Could this be what this image is referring to? Do we need to save our little salmon buddy? We still don't exactly know yet, and I have a really big feeling that Salmon Run from Splatoon 2 is going to play a big part in the story of Splatoon 3. And that's the Splatoon 3 trailer and more overanalyzed. I hope you guys are all excited as I am for Splatoon 3, and I hope you all enjoyed today's video too. Hey, if you haven't yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out, and I'm going to be making a lot more Splatoon 3 content soon, so you really don't want to miss out on that. And with all that being said, I hope you all have a wonderful day today.